Bom, então, bom dia a todos e a todas. Bem, antes de mais, obrigada, Ana, também pelo convite para estarmos aqui a moderar este painel. Cabe-me a mim, de facto, liderar o único painel em inglês, olha que maravilha, sobretudo a que eu sou. Mas espero que, de algum modo, também consigamos todos comunicar bem, não obstante estarmos a falar noutra língua, mas hoje em dia também o inglês já é uma língua bastante comum. Portanto, vou agora passar. So, now I would like to invite our speakers. So, Rob, please, can you join us? So, Rob Spencer, representing here Go Unpackaged. He is the director and supply chain lead. Cristina Câmara. Ah, yes. In the previous panel, APED was already mentioned, so people are really expecting to hear from you. Cristina Câmara is Sustainability Director of APED, our retailers organization, and also Miguel Portugal Costa, okay, managing partner of Zeroo. I always have a difficulty because we are Zero and you are Zero. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly or should I?
It's perfect.
It's perfect? Okay. So thank you so much. Maybe, okay, so you prefer to be like this. Okay, so we've been already discussing reuse and all the challenges, and I think one of the things that we already realized is that every time we speak about reuse, it's not reuse per se. We have to discuss different areas. So if it's takeaway, we need different stakeholders, different approaches. If we're now, as we are now going to discuss retail, then we have a different set of stakeholders, different set of strategies. If we discuss e-commerce reuse, then we have different, so it's really not an area that we can approach as a one-size-fits-all. It's clearly something that we need to work bit by bit, area by area, because there's a lot of specificities that we need to address. And we know, as we've seen today, that we are now in a different context. We have regulation, we have hopefully a different spirit around the promotion of reuse and all preventive strategies. But still, there's a lot of difficulties in implementing reuse, in not only implementing, but in visualizing, imagining what a society where reuse is the mainstream can be. How can it be in our daily lives? When you think about reuse, many times we only think about the difficulties. How difficult it's going to be with consumers and with retailers and with the producers and all the logistics and the environmental impacts and water use and all these things. And we have a difficulty in imagining this different future. But it is possible. And to start and to inspire us, I would like to ask Rob to maybe present us a little bit about the work you've been doing and the results that you have and how reuse can be a mainstream solution.
Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Rob from Go Unpackaged. We do a number of things with our clients to help them reduce packaging waste. Broadly, we've got two arms to the business. One is consultancy, and a lot of that is around trying to articulate a business case for reuse for a lot of our clients. Most of our clients in the past have been in grocery retail and the brands that sell into grocery retail. We also have an operational arm, which I can talk about maybe a little bit later, where we actually manage the reusable vessels scheme for Ocado, who are the UK's leading online retailer. But I think specifically what we're talking about today is a piece of research and modelling we did last year for UK, where what we do for our clients in trying to help them build a business case is to get over this uncertainty gap between single use and what would reuse then be, because it's not as simple as saying, well, here's a piece of packaging for one unit. How do I compare that to a reusable unit and how much does that cost? It's an entire system change, and you've got different costs and benefits all the way along the supply chain. So what you need is a kind of aggregated some view of, if you change a certain amount of things over to reuse, what's the result? And we look at that in terms of both financially, what are the results, and also environmentally. So actually, the fundamental question, if you were to replace some single-use items with reuse, and instead of manufacturing packaging for that every time, that you're instead now having to bring reusable items back up a supply chain and wash them and recondition them and then reuse them, does that actually work out to be more environmentally friendly? I mean, this is one of the questions that's out there. This whole area we felt is, it's really short on solid evidence for a lot of these beliefs. You talk to people out on the street, they'll say, well, you know, I can recycle my plastic bottle, so that's just as good. We know it's not just as good as reuse, but you need to explain why. You know, you can say to people with reusable cup schemes, will say, oh, well, I use more energy in washing up my cup than I would in producing a new disposable cup. There's all sorts of myths out there. So what we did in the UK is we actually took the model that we used for our specific clients, but we built up an aggregate UK view. And we started with this 30% target. So the hypothetical question was, if 30% of products sold in the UK were suddenly to be sold in reusable items, what would that do? You know, what is the change? What is the investment required? What is the annual cost differential between this reuse system and single use? And we did that in a number of ways. As we built this, it became more and more complicated because there are many ways you can do reuse. So we actually had, we did a baseline single-use measure of what does it cost to get things to market and sell them, what is the environmental impact of that in terms of packaging waste and in terms of carbon emissions. And then we compared that to some alternative systems like the DRS system that was due to be coming into the UK just on single use, so we did that comparator. And then we looked at reuse systems using citizen return, so the idea that everything you sell then has to come back through a retail store. So we modelled that, and what's the impact of that? We also modelled other systems like what if local governments in the UK were to pick up reusables from a curbside as they now currently pick up recycling and other waste. So what if that happened that way, instead of everything relying on the consumer to bring everything back to a certain point that it becomes part of a service. And we also had a look at online specifically, and then we also had a look at refill. There's a specific refill system that we'd helped develop for a trial that we'd done with Aldi a year before, which is a circular system which has real benefits in terms of that. So what we found, the findings were, the headlines were that it will actually save the system money to have reuse. Effectively, the equation comes down to what is the extra cost and energy and waste involved in adding this reverse logistics leg where you have to take things back, consolidate them, sort them, wash them or recondition them, however that needs to happen, and get them back to the point of fill. Offsetting that against the fact of really, essentially, the big item is how much packaging you then can reduce. And I'd say the headline finding, the reason that it came out positive for reuse is it is largely misunderstood how much energy is involved in the production of plastic. It's huge. So if you can reuse that plastic, by the way, our reuse items were mainly assumed to be plastic. If you can reuse that, there are massive savings to be had, both in terms of the cost, the financial cost, but also in terms of carbon emissions and packaging waste. And it's really the only way to drive significant reductions in waste is the reuse option. So we were showing reductions of 95% in carbon emissions, about the same in packaging waste. It's not 100% because we didn't assume you get constant forever use out of these things. They all had a lifespan. We factored in a really robust return rate of 93% reuse rate because we wanted to map something out of a working system. But because the return rate itself is such a contentious issue, we also did sensitivity analysis to say, well, what if that goes down to 90? What if that goes down to 80? And what does it do? And again, the headline would be, even if you go down to 80, it still works out pretty positive. It still absolutely washes its face from a financial point of view, and from an environmental view, yeah, it's not as good as 93%, but it's a complete order of magnitude better than single use. So that was the main findings of the work that we've done.
Okay, one small precision. So this 30%, you chose the 30% because where does it come?
Yes, thank you for asking that, because it's a good question. Because you also asked the question that you sent me saying, is that the minimum you need to get the economies of scale? No, absolutely not. 30%, that 30% figure that we were modelling, that equates to about 9 billion cases of product in the UK, which is what, anything 80 to 100 billion items we're talking about there. You don't need anywhere near that much to get to economic quantities for these things. Mm-hmm. It's much more, so the main area that hits, this is a very complex system we're modelling here, the key part is the economics on the wash and the recondition. Mm-hmm. You do not need billions of products to be able to make that economical. You can do, it's literally on the case of getting it to hundreds of thousands up to 1 million a year of comparable things that can go through a line, an automated line. You can get that cost right down. So yeah, the 30% was literally just because it was a goal that had often been communicated as aspirationally in industry. We said, okay, well, we take that. If you got to that 30%, we didn't feel anyone had answered the question about, well, what does that then mean? Because that is effectively about 100 billion items now moving back up the supply chain, and has everyone thought through the implications of that? And the good news is, yes, that there is definitely, you are now paying more to do all this activity in this green sector, creating new jobs in this green sector, but it comes nowhere near offsetting the benefit you get from the reduction in materials. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to.
Okay, thank you. And following this perspective of good initiatives that can inspire us, then I'll ask Miguel a similar question. I mean, on the activities you've been developing, what would you like to share also? Because I assume not everyone here in the room knows what Zeroo has been doing in reuse, and I think we could all gain a lot from having a clear idea of your intervention.
Sure, thank you so much for the invitation. Well, we are a sustainability technological company. We started around 6 years ago in Zeroo. We started like we are a technological company prone to circular economy. We started like around 7 years ago with one of our main products, which is LoopOS. LoopOS gives retailers the opportunity to make circular economy easier on inside their systems, and we have several use cases nowadays, hundreds, and some of them will be on this stage or have been on this stage. So we have that's one of the directions of our company. Around 3 years ago, we were defied by one retailer to make a bulk buying to make bulk buying easier, and in that day we made the system, and we understood that we had something that we could use for several different use cases for reuse, and we started and we created this division inside Loop, which is Zeroo, and nowadays we have 3 main verticals. One which is the bulk buying. So the main revolution is that the package can be reused every time. It's traceable, as an RFID chip and QR code, which communicate with the client. You can communicate with the packaging, understand how many times it was used, how many products it has, and also as each package is unique, we know everything about it. And it has been a very nice use case, but unfortunately in the market it's not something mainstream.
Not yet.
Not yet, but we have a very stable version of it and ready to start whenever. And well, we understood like that we also could create a system for reuse for several different use cases. And I would say our main project at the moment is a project that is called Circular E-commerce Escala, which is a consortium between us, CTT, and Impact World, which is a company of packaging. And we are making 59 pilots. We are ending this month, so we are really underwater, we could say. But we are finishing 59 pilots, and it's a use case for reuse and how we can for use for e-commerce. So every person receives a lot of packaging nowadays in their houses, and well, most of them can be reused several times. the truth is that it is not. So it goes to recycling normally or not. But we have a lot of cardboard. Well, people have in their doors or in their recycling bins a lot of cardboard packaging nowadays. And we started to, we discussed with CTT for some years this opportunity, but the truth is that all the logistical was very, very expensive. But we found a way to finance it, and we are testing and understanding several different models, since deposits, since also give and also return points. We have around 12,000 return points, which are the CTT stores all around, which is a big project, very, very nice in terms of reuse. Nevertheless, we have a lot of difficulties about, we don't have 90% return rates, not even easy, not even around that. But we are, I would say, like in 2 months or 3 months, you'll hear from us and the results of this project. But our main goal is to create an ecosystem that is ready to have e-commerce reuse, and it's built under the same system as bulk buying. We also, after bulk buying, we also we have a third vertical on reuse that, and we already spoke a lot here before about cups, and we also think this can be a technological improvement for cups also in the future. We are creating a cup with a RFID inside of the injection of the cup, so that cup really has a unique identificator, which cannot be washed or cannot. It's very difficult to erase, and we are building. It's a different plastic. It's not PP, as you guys talked here before. It's tritan, which is also a plastic base, but which is much more resistant. That we also use for bottles, those reusable bottles that we use. It has a lot of more. We can use it several more times, and it's 100% also 100% recyclable. And we still have half a year more or less, but to test it in the real market. And we already have some prototypes since last week, and probably we'll start also using them until the middle of next year. We'll have something new about it. But the truth is that if you have something that can be really traceable, that can be even our phone can read it and understand how many times it was used and what's the utilization that it thought. We think we can also send that to several different projects, also in packaging, not only for beverages, not only for bulk, but for several different. And here what we are providing is the technique of injection to do so, and also the technology to communicate with it. Okay. Therefore, we do also some other things in circular economy, but in reuse I would talk
These
about.
Are the main.
Yeah,
okay, okay, thank you. Well, now maybe we can go to Cristina, and maybe, I mean, now we have this different context where regulation is more or less setting the rhythm, the scenery. From my experience, and I've been around in discussing reuse for many, many years, or a few decades already, and retailers have always been some tough negotiators on this matter. So my first question to you, Cristina, is what about now? I mean, do retailers see this new context, this new potential of reuse as something an opportunity they are looking forward, or still they have a lot of doubts on how to implement it?
Thank you for your question, and thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm happy to be here and share the experience of retail in this context. And yes, we are always looking and seeking for new opportunities, Susana, always trying to find out the best solution. But let me tell you that the work of retail in what regards reuse didn't start now, and didn't start with this new PPWR regulation. This work is in practice for a long time, since Maybe I would divide these topics in 2 areas. First, the work of retail in B2B operations, where we have an important experience regarding reusable crates, reusable pallets, in order to maximize efficiency and logistics between the warehouse and the store. So we have a lot of experience there, and we know that it works really, really well. So there are really many examples we can share with you about that. But also regarding business to consumer, we also have a lot of examples, some pilot projects, for instance, about the refill for detergents, but also reusable carrier bags for the customer to take their shopping at home, and also refill for water and juice in store. And we know that the customer is also already allowed to bring his container from home to the store. So reuse is already in place in retail, but of course we are still looking for opportunities, because something that characterizes the retail sector is its proactivity. We aren't stuck in old solutions. We are still always running to find out the best solution, and also the best reusable solution. And we believe we will find it, but still we cannot forget that the system is complex, has its complexity, and it's a pity I couldn't come here since the morning, but when I arrived I could hear topics about logistics efficiency, about complexity of the system. So those are challenges that we of course identify. From our perspective, we need to keep it simple from an operational perspective, and we need to guarantee that consumer is on board, because if consumer is not on board, of course it simply wouldn't work. And for the consumer to be on board, of course it has to be simple, but also for the retailer operation, from an operational perspective, also needs to be easy, and there needs to be cooperation throughout the value chain.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think it's kind of, I wouldn't say new, but it's clearly a key element in promoting reuse is the collaboration, because all these logistics, even the packaging, the standardization, these are all themes that need to be discussed, need to be aligned with the different stakeholders, and that's in an area of as retail where competition is always present, let's say this way. It might be one of the challenges, one of the barriers that that you may find. And maybe, I don't know, from your experience, maybe going again to Rob, and being someone who is used to work with retailers, businesses, different businesses, where do you see the key, let's say the key bottlenecks, the difficulties that we need to move so that we can have a faster implementation of reuse, I would say? Yeah,
I mean, I'd echo some of the comments we've already heard. It needs to be as least disruptive to existing operations as possible, especially for a retailer. One of the nuances of the results that I didn't go over before was that the citizen return model, where if you're talking about the sort of volume of reusable products that we were in this study, if that's all coming back through a store, it's very costly. It's very costly for a retailer to be able to manage that. We're able to cost into our modelling what is the extra space required. Because if you think about it, if you're now selling 30% of all your products in a reusable format and that's got to come back through the same sales point, think about roughly 30% extra space you need, because it all needs to be handled and it all needs to be sorted and it all needs to go. So there's a sort of mini warehousing operation that goes on in every store that was then going the other way too. What our results, they still showed a marginal improvement in costs, but one of the things that we can't measure is if space is not available, and this is particularly true in the UK where there is not a lot of space for stores to expand into, you will cannibalise existing selling space, and there's a cost to that too, which we couldn't really quantify. So one of the key findings that we came out with was that the curbside collection model, if you're talking about those sort of volumes, it's really the only way to make it work, because it's easier for consumers. You know, there is already a process of putting things out to be collected. It's simply a case of having another categorization of that. It takes away the pain from the retailers, and it just gives you a more efficient supply chain. So the way supply chains work is that effectively you want to keep stuff in bulk quantities for as long as possible across the supply chain, and it's only at the end of a supply chain for grocery, when things fragment out to stores, that was often called the last mile, where unit costs are quite high. So if you're going to send stuff back through that as well, you're really inflating the costs. If you are instead aggregating at the household level, at the local authority level, at the suburb level, and then at the city level, you can really get the economies of scale there to manage that. But the tricky thing with reuse is, because it's an entire system change, I think in the past there has been a lack of that value chain that then needs to come into being. Takes a few different actors. It's not just a one off-the-shelf solution. So I think a lot of brands and retailers in the past have wanted to change, but have not had that one-stop shop to be able to go, right, well, just give me the solution and I'll plug into it. It sort of needs to be built and collaborated, and a lot of what we do as Go Unpackaged is facilitate that collaboration.
Okay.
But yeah, so for instance, we need a healthier market for the services of washing plastic containers. It's out there, it's done at the moment, but it's not done for these sorts of items at the sort of scales that we need. And the investment in the machinery and everything that you need to do that is not going to happen unless there's a commitment that volume is going to come. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. But the good news is, getting back to your question about what's an economical quantity, even within one single retailer, if you can standardize the packaging, which we're sure you can, there are many things. So for instance, fabric conditioner, laundry liquid, there's many different brands, there's many different flavors, there's many different sort of formulations of that. They all use roughly the same type of bottle. Now, for a lot of brands, they really value their specific bottle that they use, because there's a lot of work to go into the branding on that. Other brands, maybe private labels, are less invested in that side of things. But there's clearly an opportunity to standardise there. And if you can standardise, every time you take out the necessity to sort into different types of things in the supply chain to get it back, and to be able to share the assets through multiple users, and to get that network benefit of minimising the logistics and not having to get all this one type of inventory over to that part of the country because it's only manufactured there. But you can sort of say, well, no, they manufacture, but these ones manufacture the same. So when it comes this way, we'll just send it there. You know. So you get those sorts of benefits. All that stuff needs to coalesce. One of the big levers that really helps, I don't know if Boris is still here from Tübingen. I mean, that is a classic example of help the business case for reuse by leveling up the playing field on single use, so that it's just reflecting an actual cost, which at the moment in a lot of places is an externality. EPR does the same, PPWR will do the same. It just makes the actual costs of that apparent, so that it makes it that much easier for the economic rationale for reuse, which is very strong anyway. If you're also avoiding tax costs, then fantastic. That really helps as well. And that's the sort of stuff that really will get. It'll influence the consumer, but it will influence the retailer. It will influence the brand if there is a clear business case, and that tax avoidance, the sort of tax avoidance we want as a society. Because the Tübingen tax, for instance, they were talking about the revenue they get, but I'm sure they forecast out in the future they want that revenue to come down because they want people to stop doing it. And that's the desired effect. So the more you can do that, the easier it is to bring that into play. And so I was just going to say, and on reuse, even at the moment, the modelling we did in the UK in EPR, reusable items aren't exempt from EPR, so that's built in. it's still a massive benefit because you only pay the EPR on it once, and then every time you reuse it, it's free. So you still have you're amortizing one cost that in single use you get every time you play. So there's a huge benefit to be had there as well.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we are now in a moment where we have a government that said that they don't want to impose any more taxes, which is not very good in this area of reuse, because we know that taxes or a cost, an extra cost, is really one of the key elements. And when you're comparing reuse with, let's say, potentially recyclable plastic, at the moment, most European countries are paying huge amounts of money because of the plastic that is not being recycled. In Portugal, every year we spend 200 million euros that we pay to the European Commission because we don't recycle all the plastic, packaging, the plastic packaging that comes in the market. And this is a cost for society that it's not expressed in every one-way plastic packaging that goes on the market. And then we get reuse, and we don't factor in this kind of other costs that are there. It's not just the energy you're mentioning, it's that there are other costs that we are all paying because we're not, I would say, we're not making the right choices. So that's something we need to continue to enter. But maybe just going a little bit, I'll be back to you, Miguel, but to Cristina again, because I think from what Rob was saying, this importance of having all these different stakeholders. I mean, APED is, I think it's the only organization that represents retailers in Portugal. Do you see a role that you can play in bringing these actors together, facilitating the standardization, the logistics, this working, even with municipalities? Because one of the things that I get from your intervention, Rob, is that we sometimes, I mean, I've never thought about reusable being collected on the curbside. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it. It's like sometimes we need to think a little bit outside the box. It's not like just the usual solutions. So maybe to Cristina, a challenge. I mean, how do you see APED being able to have this hero role to bring these actors together?
Well, that's a great question, because that's exactly one of our missions. One of our missions is to contribute to continuous improvement of the retail environmental activity. So we want to foster circular and low carbon economy. One of our missions is also to anticipate trends and to prepare the sector for the challenges. So of course we have on a daily basis a great dynamic with our member companies, with retailers. So we discuss together among competitors all the challenges, and we share best practices, and we look for better solutions to improve our activity. That we do it on a daily basis. So I see it quite natural for our sector to promote something collectively, because in fact we have a great example now with the DRS system that resulted from an extremely collective action. Not only among retailers, but also along the chain with the industry. We think it is an example of success of how these sectors could join together to create something that is important for the country. It's important in terms of circularity of beverage packaging. So that is an example, and before that we had pilot projects together with the industry association to test the feasibility of this DRS that's established this year. So for us it's natural to study solutions, to look for those solutions, to anticipate challenges, and to try to, of course, to minimize those constraints with fundamental opinions. So yes, it is naturally something that we could do, but of course we need to analyze situations, and we believe that it would be wonderful to find the best solution, and if those solutions arise, of course we'll be happy to analyze them and to discuss them with our member companies, because we do it on a daily basis. But still we believe that they need to be efficient. They need to deliver environmental benefits, and I just mentioned your interesting contribution, and it needs to keep it simple, not only for the consumer, but also to the supply chain, because they all need to work together.
So I think, I don't know if Cristina was here when Anna presented the reuse group, so maybe we need to also add Cristina to our group. Later Anna will explain you what we're thinking, but inside APED, do you already have kind of a reuse group, someone who is a group of people who are...
Well, we have an environmental group where we discuss too many topics. Of course, reuse is included. But you know, PPWR is not only about reuse and refill. We have reduction. We have so many challenges. Of course, we have to deal with all of that.
Yes, of course.
So it's not easy to go it so individually, because they are all connected. Single use is connected to reuse, because both things need to function, because investments need to be correctly addressed to these two options according to decisions of the national authorities also.
Okay. Before I go to the audience, maybe just one more question here to Miguel. Kind of the same thing that I asked Rob, and you mentioned in your presentation that you've been encountering some difficulties. Here I think we should maybe leave the e-commerce maybe for another discussion, because it's another area, it's not so much related with retail, but on the retail sector, I mean, what are the main difficulties you've been finding, and how what solutions have you found to try to overcome them?
Well, I would say things are connected. Well, I believe that's the most important thing, which is we don't need to take e-commerce and put it in a different box, which is about retail, or we don't need to put cups in a different box of takeaway. Therefore, what we believe, and we firmly believe in this, which is collaboration. And therefore, for collaboration, we also understand that, and convenience for consumers. We understand that, like, a consumer will not make a return of any reusable item in one app of one retailer, and then he will use it and he will buy in another retailer. Well, that's not our point of view. Probably they can do that, but the user experience must be seamless. And that happens, and we can see that, and we have a real proof, because it's already implemented in some months already, and I believe, as far as I know, we have like 3 million bottles already delivered on SDR Portugal. And the user experience is very, very easy. You just grab a bottle and you go to any retailer, the biggest retailers like in Madeira or in Portugal, and you just go there. You don't even have a paper, and that's a unique experience. If you go to Sweden, if you go to Norway, you always have a little paper, and the experience is not the same. Therefore, we were able to create a very good experience to the customer, and we can see that. So what I believe, and the main difficulty that we see is it's a little bit on the background. The consumer doesn't see it, but for this to happen in this SDR, like all the companies have very complex systems. We've worked in some of them, and we've made it easy. And other companies made it easy in some other players in the market. And therefore, we see it in these two ways. An easy way to do this for consumers, and for consumers to have the experience to be easy to return. And the second part, retailers to be able to invest in this consumer experience so that return rates are higher. And so the main difficulties that we have for the use cases that we made more, and like with the retailers, like the direct case was more takeaway, which we know it will come, and it's constantly being delayed. Therefore, we don't know when, but we know when it comes, the retailers will want to have like a seamless experience, like a SDR, and therefore they will need to make an investment to give the consumer this good experience. And therefore, we say the systems are very, very complex, and so we have to create an agnostic system which is easier to connect the different retailers to this agnostic system. Okay. And therefore, also that was always something that we defended since day one, which is We don't want any proprietary apps. We don't believe that people will have like a vertical for the cup in one app and then the vertical for the takeaway. So people can have different apps if they want. People can create different apps, but there is a core where all the information is stored. Even for SDR Portugal, we defended that when we made a proposal for the system, and we still believe it's useful, but that's another talk. But that's what we believe, so that we can create like a core where we can share all the information and where everyone can access the information from the retail part and also from the consumer.
Okay. So there's learnings that coming from all these different systems, and then we can maybe at some point combine some of them.
The other way around. So all the data that comes from the system, and then inside we can also put it in and take it out.
Okay. Okay. So now I'll open the floor for a few questions before I continue with my questions, because I have several. But right here. I would ask the person to identify herself.
My name is Anna Sampaio, and I would like to ask where the consumer, and I think this question was already made, but it seems that consumer is always outside of the system and receives the system as it is, and it doesn't make part of developing the system. It seems that the way this is developed is pretty much top down and not bottom up. So, and another thing is that it also seems that these systems are developed by people from environmental science and not from the social science, which and we are always speaking about behaviors. So how would you include this knowledge that is out there, and it seems that from what you've spoken, that there is a gap in the knowledge that we probably have to overcome, because it's like I say, where are the studies about environmental engagement, buying in, and it seems that we are always reacting and not being proactive in addressing the gaps in the knowledge related with consumer behavior. For example, I'm not sure if it would be useful for consumer association to be present here in this summit, and it's not here probably.
They were invited.
They were invited and not here. Why? Why are not here? So
probably don't have enough resources to be everywhere if they are as we are.
But that's the point. Why this is not as important for them to be here? So are all these questions that I think that is missing, and it would be helpful to. So I would like to know your opinion.
Okay, thank you. I don't know who.
Can I jump
in? Go
in?
ahead. Yeah.
Excellent question. So I was talking mainly about the modelling work that we've done, but we've also done a number of implementations and designs of trials and a trial that's continued on and become operational with our Ricardo reuse offering. Yes, the behaviour change aspect to this is frequently overlooked. We have many cases of retailers or brands will put a trial in place and then they'll say, well, it's a year later and people were excited about it at first, but now no one uses it, so no one's interested. Mm-hmm. Our view on that is you can't just build it and assume everyone will immediately change and be able to use it. So there are ways that can be done. In fact, one of my partners at Go Unpackaged, Helen Clements, is a behaviour change expert, so this is very much her territory. But in the trial, when we trialled a new refill system at Aldi, they got fantastic. So basically, we had refill options right next to the packaged options of the same product. and they were getting about 30% share just on the refill, because we had focused on how do we make sure this makes sense to the consumer, the shopper coming in. How do we do stuff like, for instance, we had the option of just using a paper bag, even though we didn't really want people using paper bags, because you don't want people to fail. You don't want them, if someone comes up to a display and they can't make sense of it, or it says, well, you need to have brought your own jar, or you can't engage with this, they will very rarely come back. There's a lot of behavioural studies have shown that people are just like, just don't want to go back to it. So sort of taking all those sorts of things into account. Also on the online reuse offering we have with Ocado, there is a lot of a focus on one of the examples, or one of the advantages that online has, is that they have this two-way communication with every customer. And they will know which customers are interested in this because they're the ones who've bought it. So the whole question on return rates, they don't impose a deposit on the reusable item. Ocado don't, but they communicate with their customers and say, we need these back, please give them back, and we get really healthy return rates. And we're getting really healthy return rates for over a year now. But also you need to understand some of the dynamics of that, because we sell liquid, like laundry type products in one, and we sell pasta and rice in another. The pasta and rice units come back really, really quickly. The liquid ones won't, because you don't get a bottle of laundry liquid and pour it out into a beautiful jar like you might with pasta. And you can only use it as much as you can use it, you know what I mean? So it'll sit in someone's laundry for quite a while. So the system needs to be able to take that slack and cope with it. It needs to cope with the fact that it sits out there for a long time, and you've got that. We've seen trials in the past where people have said, oh, the return rate's really low, but the trial went for 3 months. They probably haven't brought it back yet. I mean, it's like, how long is it supposed to be out there for? These are the sort of questions that need to be asked. But yes, I just totally agree that this behaviour change aspect absolutely needs to be focused on. And yes, the economics and being able to offer something that is not more expensive, that gets everyone moving. But if you don't foster the user through the experience, they're not gonna adopt it.
I don't know if Cristina or Miguel, if you want to add something. I mean, from my experience, I mean, retailers really know about consumer behavior. They really, really know. They might not be so interested in exploring the reuse part and keeping this, because it's the same thing. I remember when I used to work on energy efficiency, and everyone was very happy with these very intelligent meters that everyone is going to see their energy and choose when they plug in the machine while they're at their work. This lasts like a few months at maximum. Then it becomes, I mean, you really need to find new ways, and but yeah, just to the consumer behavior
just
specialist.
one comment to add that I agree with your observation. I think it is important to consider consumer science, social science here, because the behavior of the consumer is something that we are still trying to find out. Because sometimes there are a lot of inquiries asking the consumer, would you like to buy environmental products with a low environmental footprint? Yes, I would like to have that in the store. Yes, I would desire that. I don't like plastics. I really want more, and they ask for more. But then at the end of the day, we see the shopping decisions, and there is still a lack of coherence in what they ask for and what they really do. So it is a challenge, and of course for us it's really important that the consumer is on board. Thank you. Okay,
we don't have a lot of, so maybe just one, because I would like then to have one final question for everyone, but very fast, very quickly. Okay. Okay. So maybe we can hear both questions, and then I'll leave it. Okay.
Hello, I'm Luis Armado. Thank you for all the sharing. And from what I've been hearing this morning, I feel we need to measure things differently. Susana was mentioning that sometimes we forget to measure things. Rob, you've been measuring a lot of things. From what you've been sharing, it looks like we need to bring all on board, and so we need to understand who is willing to leave what behind or to share whatever. So my question would be, from what you're saying, at a certain point, brands would need to leave some room for a white label or something similar, leave the package as it is. Have you been accounting the costs for the brands to do that and for not doing that? How is that trade-off going to be played?
So there's a couple of elements to that question. There's the pragmatic considerations on cost of having more SKUs, potentially, more lines, more batches, because you're proliferating the number of SKUs. If we assume for a moment that there's a reusable version of every SKU, yes, that's all in there. There is a kind of a philosophical argument about what is the brand cost of something like that. And no one knows the answer to this question. There are opinions on it. What I would say is, I think it's unrealistic to assume that brands would just go with a very generic, ours looks the same as everyone else's. But you can change the playing field from the point, you might say, look, we need to standardize the bottle to, or the container or whatever it is, to a few different archetypes. But within that, you can label it completely differently, you can absolutely brand it differently, but suddenly the shape and the physical characteristics of the underlying plastic, say, or whatever material you're using, needs to be somewhat standardized and might be the same as your competitors. Now, brand value, I mean, if I go into a supermarket today and I look at, say, Lenore fabric conditioner, the private label bottle is kind of imitating that anyway. It looks the same. The difference is in actually reading the label and saying, no, that's Lenore, that's a brand I trust. If I trust that brand, and I might not trust the private label, or I don't care and I'm going to get the private label and pay a little bit less. So it's a hard question to give you a direct answer on. It's considered, but in terms of the actual costs of some of that proliferation of SKUs and having to manage that, that is actually in the model. And we assumed, we even imputed, we think, quite draconian extra costs in capital to amend packing lines to be able to cope with these reusable items. But another one of the headlines, another one of the myths to bust slightly is that one of the things that frightens people about reuse is all the capital expenditure that's going to have to be done, all the filling lines will have to be changed, you'll have to put all these washing lines in. Yes, but in actual fact, these are machines that should last about 10 years, that's amortized over 10 years, with the volume going through it. That is not a big ticket item. The big item on costs is partly space, but also labour. So this is why the retail model, everything coming back through a store, is so expensive, because you've just got people. Some stuff going through a store makes sense, but if you're putting all the volume back through a store, you're only going to get to a certain amount of volume before that becomes uneconomical.
Okay.
Yeah, I will try to keep it short. I'm Genevieve Hilton from the magazine earth.org. I wanted to know about the different characteristics of implementing a reusable system for a densely packed urban environment like Lisbon, or a suburban environment with big, not just supermarkets, but hypermarkets, versus maybe a rural village or something very, or low population density.
A small question, then.
Very small question.
Very small question, yes.
So you can answer it in 10 seconds, I'm sure.
I mean, I can have a go at this, because so this modelling we did for the UK, we can do for other countries as well, and I've just been doing a study for Canada, for the Canadian government, which couldn't be more different from most European countries, and certainly the UK, in terms of its spread. And one of the really interesting things that surprised me, because originally I was instructed to leave out the Northwest Territories and the really remote area, just leave them out because it's going to blow the costs out of the water. But when you actually looked at the cost impact overall, it doesn't make that much difference on average. Now, for sure, if you're sending stuff out to Nunavut, out to the northwest, up to the polar regions, yes, that stuff is very expensive, but you're doing it in such small quantities. For the overall system, it's not that big a deal. So you will have stuff, it will be a more expensive route, it will be going out there. Some manufacturers and retailers may choose just not to send their stuff there. So that's fine, that will just bring the cost down. but it is a little bit of a chimera. It's not insurmountable. So the main thing is, I come from Australia originally. Australia's got a problem where everything is produced on the east side of the country, and then on the other side of the continent you have Perth, this city that springs up. So everything that goes out there has to come back. Yes, it's more expensive, but if the population gets to a certain point where that's like, it's going to be too much, manufacturing pops up there, because it's sort of the invisible hand of the market. Things will happen. So as long as it's small enough, it doesn't really break the system, even if those particular flows are more expensive when you isolate them.
Okay, so that was fast. That was fast.
We've solved that.
Yes, it's solved now, so we can move. Okay, so very, very quickly, I would ask you, Rob, if you could just maybe, and you just said that you're advising the Canada's government, considering PPWR and all these challenges now that EU has, what will be your main advice to governments, to promote reuse? A small one again.
There is a real reluctance to impose taxes. We get that. It's not electorally popular. They don't want to do it. It's not popular with industry. When they hit industry with it, you get the odd very strong initiative like we saw from Germany, where someone has come in and said, this is my vision and it's just going to happen. But that you can't rely on that. However, one of the things, and in the UK, DEFRA was one of our key stakeholders. They were part of our advisory panel and sponsored the work and oversaw it, and have taken that on board in terms of their plans for how they design legislation going forward. Because there is a positive economic story here as well as a positive environmental story, and the two actually go hand in hand. If it's environmentally friendly, like, newsflash, it's probably economically friendly as well. It's just that the stakeholders might change. So for a government, that's good news, because it means there are abilities to maybe reorganise the way revenues are sought. And we're seeing this with EPR. And it was in Boris's answer to the question. It's what are you doing with that money? We're just paying for the disposal. Whereas before we had to get it out of the taxpayer's pocket somehow. So just to be conscious of the economic dynamics of this and the environmental dynamics, and be prepared to do things like, for instance, make reusables exempt from EPR. That'd be good. That would be a really positive thing. That would be a really strong signal.
We already have it here.
Right, great.
Here in Portugal, actually.
Yes.
They're exempt.
It makes perfect sense as you think about what the tax is trying to do. But also to think about ways, there might be ways to invest in some of the infrastructure that's needed ahead of time to give industry that sense of certainty it needs to make the leap. Because I feel like that is the big obstacle. I think there's a lot of willingness out there. I think the retailers want to do it. I think even the brands want to do it. Everyone wants to do it. But it's kind of like, well, if I make all this investment, what if everyone else goes, oh no, we're not doing that anymore. I've just wasted all my money. So that's when the capital problem becomes an issue. But yes, if there was some way, even if the government takes a stake in it, there can be a payoff for the government. There can be a payoff for the public sector in that sense. But I think that would be really powerful leadership for governments to do that in the interests of both the public and industry.
But you just mentioned something that is a huge concern for us. It's stability of the decisions that politicians make.
Yeah.
Because we had here in Portugal, now we have it at EU for the first time, but previously here for several years we've been having this kind of situations where we have a legislation and some operators, they kind of prepare themselves to answer, and then at the end the legislation is never implemented, and then they made the investments, but they just somehow they have to find. So this is the reliability of the decisions of the politicians. Yep. It's key. Let's hope.
Long-term thinking.
Yes, because the investment, as you said, it takes time to be So maybe to you, Miguel, also a last, in your dream world to promote reuse in the areas you work, what the governments can do?
I don't know if I'm the right person to say so. It's very difficult.
From your experience.
From my experience, I would say, like, when we talk about, and Cristina also spoke a little bit about it, and we have it in our face nowadays, which is the ERS. So we started really, really early. Like the first pilots APED made, we also participated on them. So we are talking about this like for 4 years, and then it's being implemented, and still there is a lot of resistance.
Many more years, many more before, many more.
No, well, but in that in terrain, you know, in the floor, it's like 4 or 5, I don't know, several years, and we've been also on there. So that's the point of we have to start early, and on the reuse case, I don't think we are, not even near. And that's one point. And then we have, for what we can also speak a little bit like the digital product passport. So what we firmly believe that we have to go through all the logistics and to understand much better that a container and a package must be almost unique so that we can have real numbers and not saying that probably, well, I have cups that have been used 100 times, I don't know, because I cannot measure them. Therefore, like, I would like to focus very much in digital product passports, for instance, and initiatives like that that can bring us to real measures and that are traceable, and that we can understand the problems that we face, and we can have data on that.
Okay. No? I can continue. It's okay. I still have more here, and I'm sure in the room we find new ones. If someone else wants to, I just said I was advised to end as soon as possible. That's why I'm good. And to you, Cristina, maybe a similar question. I mean, in terms of how can retailers be, I don't know, be more stimulated to be part of this solution? I mean, what can Rob was just mentioning the infrastructure. I mean, what do retailers feel that could help them really be part of this system?
Well, we always want to be part of the solution, and we work every day with that objective. Now we have important regulations to be implemented, and PPWR is one of them, only one of them, because there are several others. And what we ask for is clarity, long-term vision, as you mentioned, and legal certainty, because we want to implement, we want to fulfill those challenges, but we need predictability and we need stability in the decisions. It's not easy to just don't know where the room goes. Sometimes it's on the left side, sometimes on the right side. It's really difficult to do business like that. So this is what we ask for.
Okay. I think we now have to finalize it. So thank you so much for your great contributions. Thank you also to you for being here until this time and still having questions. And yeah, we can continue the conversations now during lunch and during the afternoon. Thank you again.
Thank you.